Hi everyone, this is Arjuan Salim Lakrawala. The game I have here is a 3-minute Blitz game. It turned out rather interesting, so I decided to make a video about it. It's Bobby Fischer Random Chess, or Chess 960. I played it live on chess.com. The idea behind this game is that the main pieces in the back row are arranged rather randomly, and the pawns, however, are in their usual starting squares. I haven't played a lot of Chess 960, so I have very little experience in it. I'm not offering any advice in this game, definitely not offering advice. I'm not qualified to offer chess advice or teach. I'm only narrating my experience and hoping that it will make interesting videos, and hoping that readers might learn something along the way. This game, it's really difficult to understand the moves for me because of my lack of experience, I guess. And as I previously said, after I play the game, when I look at it again for a review, I don't exactly remember. I don't remember what I was thinking when I played. So I tried to remember again when I recap the moves. So to understand what my opponent was thinking, to best understand what my opponent was thinking and to remember what I was thinking, I'm using here the eval or evaluation bar for the recap, so that I can have a better insight into how each move turned out. So I'm playing as black and my opponent is white. So it's my opponent's turn. Let's see. My opponent moved the pawn before the queen, and the queen, of course, is not in the usual position. So this makes sense because now my opponent can activate the bishop, which currently is in place of the rook. So what move did I make? I made the move I usually make, which is I moved the first one step. I moved one step, the pawn either before the king or queen. This is what I usually do when I play any regular chess game. However, while it might make sense in the normal chess, over here it seems like a very pointless move because I can't activate any of my pieces. My bishops are blocked in, and so is the queen, so are the rooks. So what move did my opponent make? My opponent moved the pawn on the other side of the board, which helps activate the other bishop. I made the second move, which still does not help me release any of my pieces, activate any of my pieces. My queen is blocked in still by my own pawn. My bishops are closed. I have no idea why I made these moves. My opponent now, with their third move, now can activate the queen along with the two bishops, and even the rook has some space, although I don't think it can go anywhere at this point. Well, I decided to activate my knight, but my other pieces are still all locked in. So my opponent has how many pieces, active pieces? 1, 2, 2 bishops and a queen, and I have only 1 knight. I think I should name this game How Not to Play Chess. The able bar is, however, slightly tilted in favor of my opponent than me. My opponent activated now their knight, so now they have 4 active pieces, and I have 1. Now I can activate my bishop, which is staring right at my opponent's bishop. My opponent decided to put their knight in front of my bishop and not take the bishop with theirs, because I guess they thought that would help me activate the queen. However, this they know could result in a bishop-knight trade and help push their pawn forward. I took the knight, and on the next move, I believe my opponent is going to take my bishop. Exactly, they took the bishop with their pawn. They could have taken it with their bishop, but like I said, I think they want to use the bishop for some other move. Now my knight is under attack by the pawn. It has to move. I moved it, and what did my opponent do? So now they've put my knight again under attack by another pawn, and I have to move it, but I'm not going to. Instead, I activated the other knight. However, the able bar at this point has gone really up. It's turned almost completely white. In my opinion, I think that means it's 95% in favor of my opponent, and I have like 5% chance of surviving. That appears to me the evaluation according to the bar. So do I move my knight or not? Let's see. Oh, it was my opponent's turn, and they didn't take my knight. And I didn't move it either. I instead moved a pawn, and the able bar has gone back to 95% in my opponent's favor. It looks like I'm definitely losing this game. My opponent took another pawn and chose yet not to take my knight. I think my opponent is thinking that, why do I want to sacrifice the knight? Maybe I have some hidden discovered attack or discovery attack. So they don't want to take the knight and risk that. And I'm not moving the knight either. However, according to the able bar, it's not a genius thing, because the able bar is 95% in my opponent's favor. So this is definitely not a chess playing advice game. I took the pawn, but my knight is still under threat by my opponent's pawn. And yet again, I don't move the knight and my opponent doesn't take it. I took their other pawn. And the pawn was taken by my opponent's rook, and by this my opponent have activated their rook along with their other pieces. My bishop is still trapped and my rook is basically doesn't have anywhere to go, and the queen can move, but I haven't moved her, and my other rook also doesn't really have anywhere to go. I moved my king, and the able bar's response is that I think it's now 97% in favor of my opponent. So the game evaluation, the AI evaluation is that I'm losing this game and making really bad moves. My opponent pushed forward their other pawn and still hasn't taken my knight. I captured the pawn. And now at last my opponent captured my knight. Why did they do it now? In my opinion, they probably evaluated the whole situation and found that there just cannot be a hidden discovery attack, because I've got all of my pieces basically locked in. The bishop, the rooks, the queen. The queen is at this point blocked in by my own pawns. And so my opponent must have felt that it is now safe to capture the knight, and that's what they did. That's what my opponent did. So what did I do next? The able bar is now, like I said, almost completely white. I moved a rook. I moved my rook, and my opponent is thinking now that I probably want to give a checkmate. However, it's not easy, because if I come here and capture the pawn, my opponent's knight will get the rook. Let's see what happened next. They captured another pawn of mine, and what did I do? I got the pawn. Then my opponent activated their knight, the other knight, and I can guess they are not bothered by the rook, because I think the rook at this moment doesn't appear to be threatening. I moved the rook, but I didn't capture the pawn. I instead brought it next to my opponent's rook. And my opponent knows that if they capture my rook, I will be able to get it with the knight, with my knight. So what did they do? By the way, if you look at the time, I have much more time than my opponent in the 3 minutes. So it's clear that my opponent is doing some thinking before making the moves, while I'm not really thinking much. So now my rooks are lined up, and this would probably, I think, appear a little threatening. It seems like a move usually made when attempting to deliver checkmate. So let's see what my opponent does about it. they move their knight, and the idea is if my rook gets the knight, their rook will get my rook, and it will be out of the line of the queen, of a queen attack. However, according to the able bar, my opponent's moves are genius and mine are definitely not, because it's almost white. I moved my knight back, and I think according to most chess evaluations, this is definitely not a good move to go back, for any piece to go back. So far, according to the able bar and everything I know about chess, I've definitely made all the bad moves. Now my opponent has put my king in check with their knight, and I move the king out of check, and my opponent moved forward. Of course, my opponent was able to move the knight forward safely, because the bishop stops the king from capturing the knight, and on the next move the knight can capture my queen. However, the knight which I had sent back, I was able to capture the knight with it and save the queen. However, now the bishop, I think, will probably capture my knight. I don't know, I think. Let's see what happens. No. My opponent probably figured that I moved the knight here instead of moving the queen is because I want to sacrifice the knight to the bishop, and so that the king can then get the bishop. So that's why I think they instead decided to try and capture my other bishop, or the rook, which is lined up with the other, one of the two rooks that are lined up. However, when my opponent made this move, and I think it was, like I said, out of because they were worried about, I explained it already. Something dramatic has happened with the able bar. It's gone completely in favor of me. It was before 95% in favor of my opponent, and now it looks the opposite, 95% in my favor. Throughout the game it said that I was making bad moves, and now my moves are suddenly good. Let's see what happened. I captured the bishop. Then my opponent got my bishop. And now I don't have any bishops. My opponent has 2 rooks and a bishop. I have 2 rooks and a knight, and we both have the queens. But the able bar is almost completely black now. So now suddenly it appears I'm winning the game. I captured another pawn, and the able bar is now sort of in the middle. So basically the AI at this point doesn't know who's going to win this game, me or my opponent. Okay, what happens next? My opponent captured my pawn, and the able bar has gone completely black, 100% black. according to it, now I'm definitely won the game. Okay, let's see what happens on the next move. I put my opponent's king in check, and my opponent moved the king. I put it in check again, this time with the rook. King moved. I captured my opponent's rook and sacrificed my own because the queen is going to capture my rook. Okay, then I put my opponent's king in check for the third time, this time with my knight. By the way, I try my best, and I usually never give pointless checks because I think it's distasteful in game playing to just give pointless checks and waste moves and be rather irritating. So now the king has to move again. And I've put it in check again, this time with my queen. King moved, and I capture my opponent's only remaining rook. The able bar is now 100% black. It's completely in my favor, and I'm 5 points up. My opponent moved their queen, and I placed the king in check again. King moved, and I placed the king in check again. This time it's a fork with the knight, and it's a fork between the king and the queen. So now when my opponent moves their king, I'll be able to capture the queen. I've captured their queen. I've captured my opponent's queen and put the king in check again. And we can look at the timing here. I have 48 seconds and my opponent has about, I think, I don't know, very little time. And I'm 14 points up. Yep, the game ends here and I win on time. So this was the game. I hope the viewers find it interesting. Thank you, everyone.